I'm live. Well, good morning again. It is a little later and the sun is up. And so I was giving this, and my light's a little bit bad. Let's see if you guys. Is this live? I don't know if you can see it, but it's Women's Ways of Knowing. And it's by Mary Field Belenky, Bly McVigar Clinchy, Nancy Rule Goldberger, Jill Maddock Tarul. It's the development of self, voice, and mind. And this came out. I made notes and I can't see. 1986. And here's the funny thing. I thought we had equal rights, and we don't. ERA never passed. Watch that documentary on that. A lot of people think that we're all, and we're not. And it's 2019. All right. Be glad you don't have to smell my coffee breath, but I would like to share this. I want to read this and hope that maybe it will reach other women. A very nice man bought this for his wife and his daughters, because I think we're sold a feminine. As women, we come into this world. Anyway, I'll read. I'm not an expert, but I'm learning too, and I just want to share what I'm learning. And the introduction and acknowledgments are very important because there's a lot of co-creation that goes into these. A lot of women and a lot of men that care about women and themselves. How we treat women, men, in the long run, it would pay for each of us to get over ourselves, not find somebody to pick on. I've done that. Not somebody to offload on. I've done that too. But go low. The least of us is the one in the front of us that we need to reach down and out of ourselves and help up, and if we're going home, I don't know, it's a crazy world when there's people are throwing away food and others are starving. It just, what is it? Women's Ways of Knowing. Introduction to the other side of silence. It's a little quote. It says, "If we had a keen vision and feeling of all ordinary human life, it would be like hearing the grass grow and the squirrel's heart beat, and we should die of that roar which lies on the other side of silence." George Eliot, Middlemarch. We do not think of the ordinary person as preoccupied with such difficult and profound questions as, what is truth? What is authority? To whom do I listen? What counts for me as evidence? How do I know what I know? Yet to ask ourselves these questions and to reflect on our answers is more than an intellectual exercise. For our basic assumptions about the nature of truth and reality and the origins of knowledge shape the way we see the world and ourselves as participants in it. They affect our definition of ourselves, the way we interact with others, our public and private persona, our sense of control over life events, our views of teaching and learning, and our conceptions of morality. In this book, we examine women's ways of knowing and describe five, I can't read, I can read, but I can't read that word. I highlight things and I can't see if it's 5, but it doesn't matter. 5 different perspectives from what, yeah, 5, it does matter. Different perspectives from which women view reality and draw conclusions about truth, knowledge, and authority. We show how women's self concepts and ways of knowing are intertwined. We describe how women struggle to claim the power of their own minds. We then examine how the two institutions primarily devoted to human development, the family and the schools, both promote and hinder women's development. Scratch my eyeball. Most of what we say is based on extensive interviews with ordinary women living ordinary lives. Our informants were rural and urban American women of different ages, class, and ethnic backgrounds, and educational histories. At the time of the interview, many of the women were in the midst of dramatic personal and intellectual changes, and they told us about recent as well as distant transitions in the way they perceived themselves and the world around them. We listened as women told us their life stories and described the people and events that were catalytic in shaping the way they viewed themselves and their minds. Not all of the women's stories were happy ones. This is as much a book about pain and anger and static lives as it is about hope and lives in blossom. It is also a book about the roar which lies on the other side of silence. When ordinary women find their voice and use it to gain control over their lives. Mister! Mama's home. Roar lies on the other side of silence. This year, I turned 50. Wow. That is 5 decades. That is a half a century. That is feckin' old. Oh, I'm now looking at gray hair on my head, on my dog's face. She's like this peppery white ears. And it's like, not only can I get this poor dog fat, I am making this poor dog old too. I don't know what my magic is. Don't come visit me unless you want to grow old. Anyway, background of the study. Anyway, my points with this wonderful book and my life is that, I've been using my voice all along with journaling, and then this book is a real eye opener. So I hope you will follow along, and I'm going to just keep reading because these are really smart people. And I think it's okay if we look at really smart people. Background of the study. So again, let's highlight what we said. It's the other side of silence, and it's the whole idea of using our voices as women. And I wrote, what is truth? I am human. I was born. I live in a region. Today is winter snow. My senses tell me my brain has come to know. My imagination is how I cope. The end. And then with voice 2, this is another one piece that I wrote this morning. I remember a little clip I watched yesterday about Donald Trump, and he said that in the beginning, when he started one of his speeches, he said, I'm not supposed to say this word. Nationalist. I'm a nationalist, he said. And, we let him get away with that because we don't look it up. A nationalist. Oh, I'm not supposed to say this word, he says. I'm a nationalist. All right. Do you know what a nationalist is, everybody? And our president is a nationalist. Okay, so let's just take a moment. Nationalist. And then let's go look it up because he really dug onto that. I'm a nationalist. I'm not supposed to say it, but I'm a nationalist. Nationalism is what Germany did, and that's building the walls. That's what China did with the walls. Was not only are we going to keep you guys out, we're going to keep you poor slobs in. You know, I don't like that. I don't like the walls. I don't know. To me, it seems like Jericho and in the Bible and the walls came tumbling down, that you're holding stuff, you hold people in when you don't have free access. You know, what's going on that you can't just go, I can't go over to, I live on the border of Canada. You know, what am I going to do in Canada today if I went there? I go to the knitting store. I go over to the dollar store. You know, I would say A to a Canadian. But I don't, you know, I don't like this feeling of telling people I got to roll down my window and then you got to at the border crossing and then where are you going? Like, I got to tell somebody where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going today. I'm going to go suss it out. I don't know what I'm doing. I know I got to get out of my house. You can't say that. Well, I'm going to go here and then I'm going to go there and then I'm going to do this. Are you leaving anything behind? No. No. I might spend some money, but that's it. Planning on bringing anything back with you? No, sir. So they type this up about you. They've got a little running summary of your day. You have no idea what you're doing. And you hope you remember that that's what you kind of told this guy. Okay. And then am I on GPS? They've got your they can follow you. It's anyway, I don't want to be like weird, but I do want to be a little weird. I want to ask some questions. And maybe that's what gets people in trouble is asking questions. Well, oh well, live free or die. Ask questions till you die. You know, why are you guys like this? Why is this our government? Why does it look like this? You know, why do I feel like I need therapy after I've watched 5 minutes of Congress? I don't know. You know, why am I fearful when I look at our president? Why does he gives me this feeling, this nationalism feeling? Like, and this whole, anyway, slavery. There's slavery here in the United States. I watched Neverland. I watch, you know, and I lived with a pedophile. And I can see, you know, from my family history, all the studying I've done and changes and growth that, you know, how I was just a target. And my family was a target because we were broken and we were open, you know, to somebody less off. Because if we helped somebody less off, then it took the point of view off us, you know, and we could just be us, right? But superior us, of course. It was always some sort of supply. I mean, I was not, for some reason, I was in this relationship and I know it wasn't love. I know it wasn't love. I could not stand this person. I really was fighting with him the whole time. And I think you love the people who hate you and you hate the people that love you. It's biblical. So I'd grown up with so much fighting and stuff that I figured that's what you married was somebody to that you fought with. And, you know, that's an awful way to that was an awful way to grow up. And then my poor kids, you know. But I was just indoctrinated in bullshit, you know, and bullshit coming out of my nose. Bullshit. So here's my poem, and then I'm going to keep reading. Slavery, nationalism, walls, to hold us in, to choke us out, to regather, better soldiers. Do not really criticize. Your voice is not legitimized. You know your words will be called lies. Justice is suicide. Live free or die. Do your living, 'cause soon you'll die. Come over here and find out you are dear, not queer. Come near. We all fear the tear, the pain we sustain in our heart. Blows our feelings apart. We know not what we do, 'tis true. Christ felt the iniquity, the pain for you. Go to the Creator, He has a master plan. You might not know much, but maybe later we can. All we have is our here and our now. Take a breath. And thank Tao now. Thank you, Tao. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Background of the study. The project began in the late 1970s as psychologists interested in human development. We had spent a large part of our professional lives studying the intellectual, ethical, and psychological development of adolescents and adults in educational and clinical settings. We became concerned about why women students speak so frequently of problems and gaps in their learning and so often doubt their intellectual competence. We also had become aware of the fact that for many women, the real and valued lessons learned did not necessarily grow out of their academic work, but in relationships with friends and teachers. Life crises and community involvements. Indeed, we observed that women often feel alienated in academic settings and experiences. And they experience formal education as either peripheral or irrelevant to their central interests and development. Looking back on our experience and talking with other women inside and outside the classroom reinforced our feelings that education and clinical services, as traditionally defined and practiced, do not adequately serve the needs of women. Anecdotal reports, as well as research on sex differences, indicate that girls and women have more difficulty than boys and men in asserting their authority or considering themselves as authorities. Clanton Imes, 1978, Cross, 1968, McCuby and Jacqueline, 1974, blah, blah, and then there's two other studies. In expressing themselves in public so that others will listen, another study. In gaining respect of others for their minds and their ideas, more studies. And in fully utilizing their capabilities and training in the world of work. In everyday and professional life, as well as in the classroom, women often feel unheard, even when they believe that they have something important to say. Because you do, you really do. Most women can recall incidents in which either they or female friends were discouraged from pursuing some line of intellectual work on the grounds that it was unfeminine or incompatible with female capabilities. Many female students and working women are painfully aware that men succeed better than they in getting and holding the attention of others for their ideas and opinions. All women grow up having to deal with historically and culturally ingrained definitions of femininity and womanhood. One common theme being that women, like children, should be seen and not heard. And then when you're seen, you better look good. You better not be messy. And you better smell good. In spite of the increase in the number of women students in higher education and professional schools, faculties, usually predominantly male, argue against a special focus on women students and resist open debate on whether women's educational needs are different from men's. Although women's studies programs began to proliferate in the 1970s and to attract female students and faculty, they were typically assigned marginal status in the academy and have had relatively little impact on the mainstream curriculum and academic programming. Another study. Even when the content of coursework includes issues of concern to women, strategies of teaching and methods of evaluation are rarely examined by faculty to see if they are compatible with women's preferred styles of learning. Preferred styles of learning. That would be nice. Oh, good golly, Miss Molly. Maybe we would just actually have women planning for other women's success instead of subscribing to how men decided that we need to do it, because they're not experiencing us. They're not us. They are not us. I'm not them. They are not us. Along with other academic feminists, we believe that conceptions of knowledge and truth that are accepted and articulated today have been shaped throughout history. Think about this. Throughout history by the male-dominated majority culture. Drawing on their own perspectives and visions, men have constructed the prevailing theories, written history, and set values that have become the guiding principles for men and women alike. Our major educational institutions, particularly our secondary and post-secondary schools, that's high school and college, were originally founded by men for their education of even girls' schools and women's colleges have been modeled after male institutions to give women an education equivalent to men's. Relatively little attention has been given to modes of learning, knowing, and valuing that may be specific to, or at least common in, women. We have our own intelligence. Oh, thank you very much. It is likely that the commonly accepted stereotype of women's thinking as emotional, intuitive, and personalized has contributed to the devaluation of women's minds and contributions, particularly in Western technologically oriented cultures, which value rationalism and objectivity. That's another study. It is generally assumed that intuitive knowledge is more primitive. Remember, that's women's knowledge, intuitive. Therefore, less valuable than so-called objective modes of knowing. Thus, now let's think about this, and we'll talk about what this is, I think. We'll suss this out. Thus, it appeared likely to us that traditional education curricula and pedagogical standards have probably not escaped this bias. Indeed, recent feminist writers have convincingly argued that there is a masculine bias at the very heart of most academic disciplines. I think all. most methodologies and most theories. It all comes from a man, and he's not even us. He's a man. He's got a penis. He stands up. He pees. He ejaculates. He leaves. We're stuck. We're different. We have periods. We have times, and it is intuitive. We've been taught not to listen to our bodies, the function of who we are. We're to pretend we don't even have a soul. That's what men want. They want what you look like, and they want you to be pretty for them, and they want to show you off. They don't want to stand beside somebody that they don't want to show off, and they're shallow. Unless they're not. I guess it's not every person is shallow and narcissist, but there's a whole lot of blah, blah. It's just not nice. It's really vulgar in this world, how we treat women and children and each other. It's vulgar. And it's unnecessary. And shame on people for being rude and thinking haughtiness. Being haughty. Come on. Nobody's better than anybody. Y'all gotta, if you got a scratch up there, you're gonna stick your finger in there and you're gonna dig in there and you're gonna get her out. And then maybe you wipe it on a napkin, but you know what? Some of us just wipe it on a napkin. The absence of women in psychology. Until recently, women have played only a minor role. Surprise, surprise. As theorists in the social sciences. The authors of the major theories of human development have been missing even as research subjects at the formative stages of our psychological theories. The potential for bias on the part of male investigators is heightened by the recurring tendency to select exclusively or predominantly male samples for research. So what do we know about women? Not a whole lot. We're the new wild frontier. This omission of women from scientific studies is almost universally ignored when scientists draw conclusions from their findings and generalize what they have learned from the study of men to lives of women. Holy smokes, I wouldn't want to be, if I come back, I want to still be a girl. I don't want to be one of them. If and when scientists turn to the study of women, they typically look for ways in which women conform to or diverge from patterns found in the study of men. With the Western tradition of dividing human nature into dual but parallel streams, attributes traditionally associated with the masculine are valued, studied, and articulated, while those associated with feminine tend to be ignored. Really, dear? Thus, we have learned a great deal about the development of autonomy, self-government, governance. Thus, we have learned a great deal about the development of autonomy and independence, abstract critical thought, and unfolding of morality, of rights, and justice in both men and women. We have learned less about the development of interdependence, intimacy, nurturance, and contextual thought. A lot of studies. Developmental theory has established men's experience and competence as a baseline against which both men's and women's development is then judged, often to the detriment of misreading women. You dummies. Why would you think, men, that all of you on this planet even know what it's like to be one woman inside one woman's body? Every human, only women know what women know. Only women know what women know. We tell you, but only when I tell another woman do they have empathy, because they have felt it. You don't go far to have them. And the same with men. I don't understand what goes on with the testosterone and the hormones. I don't understand what goes on as their role in the family. When they look at children, I don't understand how their perspective is. I know what my female perspective is. And I have to live on intuition. I have to live as a, and we don't get to self govern. You women and girls and children are all subjected to authority. And men are subjected to authority too. There we've got our strata, right? We've got our our societies, right? And you've got your systems and your society, and every system, every society, and every little family. That's your small little first culture. That's your first culture. Culture. CULT. Culture. And when you get brought into this culture, you know nothing. You were brainwashed. You were held captive. And you are told who you are. It doesn't matter where you end up. You are property of MOM and DAD. Whatever language, could be mama and it could be papa, but you are theirs. And however they treat little lamb you, right, is all up to whatever they came from. So you are there, and you are there's not a penis there, so you're a girl, and this is how girls act, and this is how boys act. And we have defined that very strictly, as a society, to the point where in to go to college not long ago, if you went to college in 1937, I was reading the National Geographic, and it was published in 1937. For a hoot, I bought these for my mom, who was born in 1937. And I'm like, I got to read some of this because I love to read. And so I'll have to see if I can share that with you, because that perspective is so funny, because they're so racist. It's all completely racist talk about how Birmingham, Alabama is this wonderful new place, and every white family will get milk delivered to their doorstep, and how they're good to their Negro neighbors, and they put out their old clothes on Sundays, and there's a picture of a family of African American, roadside picking for what they can get from these. I mean, how do you do that? How do you mistreat people like that? How do you make that like that? It's just, and what a place to live. And women are it's not different for women. It's always been like that. It's always been like that for women and girls and boys. And it is this is one great big chicken coop where it is a pecking order. Get over yourselves. And there's bullies, and all of us have been bullied. Oh my gosh. It sucks to be bullied. It sucks to get your ass knocked down, and you got this big person over you ready to punch you again. It's like you gotta suck up just to live. And you've got to swallow parts of what's real to you and is real, but you better not look at what's real, because this person it's not in that person's self-interest for your reality, for your truth. And they are going to go their way, and you're going to come with them, because you're nothing without me. You can't do this without me. And part of what happens in sick relationships for women is you throw your chips all in. You don't have a plan. You don't have a way to get the hell out of here when asshole decides that, he's going to be an asshole. And when you're trapped, you're stuck. until you figure out a plan. And if you've got this learned helplessness, oh my gosh, that was get out of my way, I'll do it, I'm a man, I'll do it. And at first it seemed like, well, I'll do it because I care about you and it's a helpful thing to do. But no, it was get out of my way. I'm going to teach you how incompetent you are and how stupid and how worthless and how. So I was schooled, but I don't think we have. And now this was written again in 1986. So I'm sure that we have more women in psychology today at 2019. And we did have the Women's March. I'm not sure what the status is on that. I mean, I don't even begin to afford to get down there unless I don't know, took a bus. And I don't feel like the world is very safe. I've become kind of a chicken lately. I forgot where I was. Oh, emotions. From the moment gained of, I'm going to go with Women's Voice and Developmental Theory, the work of Carol Gilligan. When the women's voice is included in the study of human development, women's lives and qualities are revealed, and we can observe the unfolding of these qualities in the lives of men as well. The power of the woman's voice is expanding our conceptions of human development, is amply illustrated in the work of Carol Gilligan. By listening to girls and women resolve serious moral dilemmas in their lives, Gilligan has traced the development of a morality organized around notions of responsibility and care. This conception of morality contrasts sharply with the morality of rights described by Piaget and Kohlberg, which is based on the study of the evolution of moral reasoning in boys and men. People operating within a rights morality, more commonly men, evoke the metaphor of blind justice and rely on abstract laws and universal principles to adjudicate disputes and conflicts between conflicting claims impartially and fairly. Those operating within a morality of responsibility and care, primarily women, reject the strategy of blindness and impartiality. Instead, they argue for an understanding of the context for moral choice, claiming that the needs of individuals cannot always be deduced from general rules and principles, and that moral choice must also be determined inductively from the particular experiences each participant brings to the situation. They believe that dialogue and exchange of views allow each individual to be understood in his or her own terms. They believe that mutual understanding is most likely to lead to a creative consensus about everyone's needs may not be met in resolving disputes. Not everyone's needs will be met in resolving disputes. It is the rejection of blind impartiality in the application of universal abstract rules and principles that has, in the eyes of many, marked women as deficient in moral reasoning. In recent work, Gilligan and her colleague, Nona Lyons, have extended their study of gender-related differences in moral perspectives to the area of identity development. They have shown how the responsibility orientation is more central to those whose conception of self are rooted in a sense of connection and relatedness to others. whereas the rights orientation, men, is more common to those who define themselves in terms of separation and autonomy. Although these differences in self definition do not necessarily divide along gender lines, it is clear that many more women than men define themselves in terms of their relationships and connections to others. A point which has also been made by Nancy Chodorow and Jean Baker Miller. When men define themselves in terms of connections, they also frame their moral judgments in terms of responsibility rather than rights. That's another study. So, men and women, if we both look at the idea of being connected, we look more at what our responsibility is than what our rights are. And that's where men and women can come together too, is when you can learn responsibility. When I come into a relationship, it's not about what my rights. I mean, we have to set boundaries. I don't want to be beat up. I don't want to be abused. Of course, you set those boundaries, but then there's that responsibility, right? I have entered an agreement with a person, in a relationship in which I am not here to be an insect that's sucking you out, sucking out your spirit. I'm not here to use your stuff, to use you, to take away from you, to dip into you, to overwhelm you, to incarcerate you, to tell you how to live. I'm here with my own little self. And you're your own little self. So I have to keep myself, going the way I want to keep myself going. If I want to eat greens this morning for breakfast, I will. And if I want to take a walk, I will, and but I'm not, but I also have a roommate, so I'm not gonna play my music loud, and I'm not gonna, well, sometimes I jump on the bed and tickle, but we say boundaries, we like boundaries. And then we thank each other. Hey, thank you. I need that. Boundaries are important. Boundaries are important. The epistemological development, the work of William Perry. In our study, we chose to listen only to women. The male experience has been so powerfully articulated that we believed we would hear the patterns in women's voices more clearly if we held at bay the powerful templates men have etched in the literature and in our minds. However, we did not attend to men's experience by turning to the excellent. We did turn to men's experience by turning to the excellent map charting epistemological, I can't say it, epistemological development of students, drawn by William Perry and his colleagues from interviews gathered each spring from students as they move through their graduate years at Harvard. In his influential book, Forms of Intellectual and Ethical Development in the College Years, Perry describes how students' conceptions of the nature and origins of knowledge evolve, and how their understanding of themselves as knowers change over time. While a few women were included in Perry's original study as subjects, only the interviews with men were used in illustrating and validating his scheme on intellectual and ethical development. Later, when Perry assessed the women's development with the aid of his map, the women were found to conform with the patterns that had been observed in the male data. While this strategy enabled the researchers to see what women might have in common with men, it was poorly designed to uncover those themes that might be more prominent among women. Our work focuses on what else women might have to say about the development of their minds and on alternative routes that are sketchy or missing in Perry's version. In his book, Perry depicts a passage through a sequence of epistemological perspectives that he calls positions. It is through these coherent interpretive frameworks that students give meaning to their educational experience. Perry traces a progression from an initial position that he calls basic dualism, where the student views the world in polarities of right, wrong, black, white, we, they, and good, bad. Here, passive learners are dependent on authorities to hand down the truth, teaching them right from wrong. Gradually, the student becomes increasingly aware of the diversity of opinion and the multiple perspectives that others hold, and the dualistic faith in absolute authority and truth is shaken. Dualism gives way to multiplicity as the student comes to understand that authorities may not have the right answers, at least in some areas, such as the humanities, which seem to be more a matter of opinion and taste than fact. The student begins to grow beyond a dependency and trust in external authorities and carves out his own territory of personal freedom. Everyone has a right to his own opinion, and mine is as good as any other. As a student's personal opinion is challenged by a teacher's insistence on evidence and support for opinion, multiplicity yields to relativism subordinate, where an analytical, evaluative approach to knowledge is consciously and actively cultivated, at least in the academic disciplines one is being tutored in, if not in the rest of one's life. It is only with a shift into full relativism that the student completely comprehends that truth is relative. You and I have been fed all kinds of other people's truths. Here, I'm going to do the faggoty truths. And faggoty is just a word. And so is fat. And so is violence. And so is pick your nose. So excuse me for saying that. I don't mean to offend anyone. We're so offended by everything. Myself included, I get offended about almost nothing. So if I called you a bad name, I'm sorry. But if you're choosing to be upset about it because you don't have anything else to do, I'm sorry for that too. Because freedom of speech, oh my God, fag. They're just words. And if somebody is tilting them towards you, it doesn't mean you have to stand there and take them. Collect. No, you get the hell out of the way when somebody's got their crazy bag and they're doing this. I got my crazy bag And now I'm unpacking it. Here, I'm going to call you a bonehead, and I'm going to call you an idiot, and I'm going to call you no good, and I'm going to call you very bad. Does that make you bad? No. It probably doesn't even make the bonehead that's unpacking his crazy bag bad. It's just crazy. We're all just a little bit upset about everything. All right, so I'm going to mark my page because I drink too much water in the morning and coffee at the same time. We'll pick up on the women and the interview. We're still in introduction. I'm just going to read this book. I think it's a lost gem. We're all lost gems. Don't forget, give yourself a hug today. I'm going to leave and go to the bathroom because that's how I roll. It's my intuitive bladder problem. Oh, cool. Put it on there. All right, not yet. Can you pause this? I'm asking, can you pause this so if somebody can tell me? And I hope everybody can hear me okay. And I don't even know when or how I'm going to post this, but I better